Hey everybody, VP here, and today I'm going to show you how to play my contest entry for the GameCrafter.com's Dice Mitigation Contest, Rebels in the Forge. To begin, you'll separate the blueprint cards into their different categories. There are 7 different blueprint categories: horseshoes, arrowheads, bucklers, longsword, flail, chainmail, and plate mail. Shuffle each pile individually. For tabletop simulator purposes, we just mouse over them and hit R. Then, you'll place the shuffled piles across the table from left to right until you have a row that looks like this. Next, shuffle all the event cards. Once the event cards are shuffled, you can place them to the right of your blueprint cards. Now separate the reward cards into their own piles. There are 6 different reward cards: Clout, Expertise, Intrigue, Mastery, Resolve, and Sweat. The reward cards can go above your blueprint cards. It can also be a good idea to flip over the top card of each of the piles so everybody can see what the back of the card says, though this isn't necessary. The prestige cards can be placed next to the reward cards. The scoring card can be placed next to the prestige cards. Each player picks a color and takes the 10 standard dice matching their color. They also take one of the small blue dice and one of the small red dice. The small blue dice and small red dice are called value dice, and we'll discuss them later. You can put the rest of the small blue, red, and black dice within reach of all players. For tabletop simulator purposes, I have them all in these infinite bags. Finally, place all the ember shards in a pile within reach of all players. These will serve as victory points in the game. You're ready to begin the game. The player that was most recently near an open flame goes first. The game is divided into 2 halves. In the first half, Forge Time, you'll be crafting items and collecting reward cards that you can first use in Forge Time and then later use in the second half of the game, Appraisal Time. In Forge Time, the first player will flip up the top card of the event cards and read it. Event cards give all players a little bonus or goal to strive for during that round. We flipped up Maxing the Value. Whenever you roll a natural 6 on any of your value die this round, take 1 ember. Now that everybody knows the event card, starting with the first player, all players can pick a blueprint one at a time from any of the face-down blueprint cards and flip it over so everybody can see it. We'll pick horseshoes. Once every player has picked their first blueprint, we begin working the forge. All players will roll their dice simultaneously, trying to roll numbers that match the numbers on their blueprint. We only need a 1 and a 6 for our horseshoes, but we seem to be missing a 1. We did roll 2 natural 6s though, so that's 2 embers thanks to our event card. We'll place one of those 6s on our blueprint, but we still need a 1. We have a couple different options here. We can discard a dice from our forge to re-roll the remaining dice in our forge, or we can use the small blue dice to lower all the remaining dice in our forge by 1. But we'll save that for later, when we discuss the value dice. For now, let's discard a die from our forge to re-roll all the remaining dice in our forge. I will discard this too. When a dice gets discarded, it can't be rolled again until the next round. Now that I've discarded the die, I can re-roll all the other dice in my forge. Notice I did not re-roll the 6 that is already on my blueprint. Any die that is on your blueprint doesn't get re-rolled. It remains on your blueprint until you complete it. Now that we've re-rolled our forge, let's see if we get a 1. We did! Let's place the 1 on the blueprint. Congratulations! We have completed our first blueprint. The 2 dice we used to complete the blueprint get discarded, and we turn our blueprint sideways to indicate it's completed. I'll move it down here to make room for our next blueprint. We'll revisit our completed blueprints a little later on in our turn. For now, since we completed a blueprint, we get to pick any of the reward cards. Let's pick Clout. Reward cards allow you to manipulate your dice or your forge in different ways. Clout lets you add 1 small blue die or 1 small red die to your forge, this round only. We can use these reward cards at any time in this round or in a later round. When you use them, flip them over to their Appraisal Time side. You will not use that reward card again until Appraisal Time. Let's use our cloud immediately to add a small red die to our forge. The small red die immediately gets rolled into our forge, but the rest of the dice that are already in your forge stay the same. Looks like we got a 4. Now we pick a second blueprint from any of the piles. Let's go a little more challenging this time and pick chainmail. As you can see from the back of the blueprint card, chainmail requires 7 dice to complete, but it also has a much higher base value. A blueprint's value will come into play at the end of the round. It looks like we only have 1 of the 7 numbers needed. We'll go ahead and put our 3 on the blueprint card. Once again, we could use the special power of our value dice to adjust all the dice in our forge, but for demonstration purposes, we'll discard 1 die and re-roll all our remaining die in our forge again. Let's discard this 4. Now we can re-roll all the remaining dice in our forge. We got another 6, so thanks to the event card that is still active, we get another ember. Now let's see if we can put any more dice on this blueprint. We got that 6, and we also got a 2. Let's go ahead and put those on our blueprint. We still need 2 1s, another 2, and another 6. We'll have to discard another die from our forge to re-roll the remaining dice. But let's fast forward a bit. I am now down to the last die in my forge. I did roll another 6, so once again, thanks to the event card, I got another ember. When you discard the last dice from your forge, you have run your forge out. You now have to wait for the other players to finish running their forges out. When that happens, the first scoring round occurs. In end-of-round scoring, the player that completed the most valuable blueprint gets 1 ember, and the player that completed the most blueprints also gets 1 ember. If players tied, both players get embers. To calculate the value of a completed blueprint, we have to look at the blueprint card. The bottom left number is the base value of that blueprint. The bottom right number, in the blue and red rectangle, is the premium number for the blueprint. And the third number is the premium value for the blueprint. The premium value is tied to the powers of the value dice, which we will discuss soon. For now, let's just compare each player's base values. The green player completed 2 bucklers and a horseshoe. The teal player only completed a horseshoe. The green player's buckler is the most valuable blueprint since the base value is 40 gold. The horseshoe, on the other hand, only has a base value of 20 gold. The green player completed the most valuable blueprint and also created the most blueprints, so they would earn 2 more embers in end-of-round scoring. Now that end-of-round scoring is over, the next player, clockwise from the starting player, flips up the next event card to begin the second round. The second round's event card will be quick and dirty. You may leave 1 slot of your blueprint empty and still complete it. You may do this for all your blueprints this round. Unfinished blueprints stay in front of you with all of the dice you used on it. And since the event card Quick and Dirty is now active, you can complete that unfinished blueprint with 1 less die. So you only need to match 1 more die to your unfinished chainmail. The rest of the players roll all of their standard dice again, and 1 small blue and 1 small red dice, unless they also have unfinished blueprints. Remember, you do not roll the dice on your unfinished blueprints. Since you have 3 standard dice and your small blue and small red dice on your unfinished blueprint, you will only roll your other 7 standard dice and no red or blue dice. You decide to pick a buckler and then roll your dice. You don't have a 1, so you still can't finish your chainmail. But you can put a 3 and a 4 on your buckler. You discard 1 die from your forge and re-roll the remaining dice. Still no 1s, or 4s for that matter. So, it looks like you'll have to discard a die again and re-roll your forge. But, for for demonstration purposes, let's just say you did roll a 1. You place that 1 on your blueprint, and thanks to the event card, you complete your chainmail. The chainmail gets turned sideways, and all the standard dice on the card get discarded. You did manage to put a red 2 and a blue 6 on the chainmail, so I think now is a great time to explain the powers of the value dice. The small blue and small red dice are your value dice, and have a couple of special powers. The small blue die can be discarded at any time to reduce the value of all the remaining dice in your forge by 1. The small red die can be discarded at any time to increase the value of all the remaining dice in your forge by 1. It's important to note that a 6 can't go any higher than a 6, and 1 can't go any lower than a 1. They stay the same. The value dice can also be used to increase the value of any blueprint they are used on. Each blue die and each red die add plus 10 gold to the base value of a completed blueprint. When blue and red dice are used in this way, you take a prestige card for each and slip it under the blueprint. Like so. If you used a red and blue die, and their values add up to or are greater than the premium number of a blueprint, the completed blueprint is instead worth the premium value. You still take 2 prestige cards and slip them under your blueprint, but you use the yellow and starred side of the card instead to show that you have made a high quality item. Sometimes you might get more than 2 value dice in your forge. The reward card Clout lets you add 1 small blue or 1 small red die, and the event card Inspiration Strikes lets all players add 1 of each to their forge. When you use multiple red and blue dice on a completed blueprint, you can add their values together to reach the premium number, as long as you use 1 of each. So in this example, the sum of the value on the dice equals 11, which is higher than the blueprint's premium number of 9. And since at least 1 blue and 1 red die were used to eventually reach that number, this counts as a high-quality item. If only the red 3 and red 6 were on this completed blueprint, it would not count as a high-quality item. 6 plus 3 does equal 9, which is the premium number for this blueprint, but since only the red value dice were used to complete it, you don't get the premium value for it. You would get plus 20 gold to the base value of the blueprint though, since you used 2 value dice to complete it. The base value of 40 plus 20 from the value dice makes this completed blueprint worth 60 gold. Whenever you complete a blueprint using value dice, the value dice you used to create it get immediately rolled back into your forge so they are available for another blueprint, or for their special powers. If you put extra value dice on an unfinished blueprint from a previous round, those extra value dice do not get re-rolled into your forge. Only your original small blue and small red dice get re-rolled. Also, if you use the value dice's power to increase or decrease the value of die in your forge, they do not get re-rolled until you pick a new blueprint. So let's look back at that chainmail you just completed. You used a blue 6 and a red 2 to complete it. 6 plus 2 equals 8, and the chainmail's premium number is only 5. So you have completed your first high-quality item. Take 2 prestige cards from the pile, flip them over to their yellow and starred side, and then slip them under your completed chainmail to indicate it is a high-quality chainmail. It will be worth 120 gold during the next end-of-round scoring. Now, since you completed the blueprint your value dice were on, you can re-roll them back into your forge. You and the other players will continue to roll dice in this manner until you complete the round. You will then do another end-of-round scoring, and then move on to the third and final round of Forge Time. At the end of round 3 of Forge Time, you will do End of Forge Time scoring. In End of Forge Time scoring, the player that completed the most items in a category wins 1 ember. So, the player that completed the most horseshoes will get 1 ember, the player that completed the most arrowheads will get 1 ember, etc. The player with the most prestige cards will also get 1 ember. And finally, the player that has the most unused reward cards gets 1 ember. Now the game moves into the second half of the game, Appraisal Time. I've advanced our two-player game along to Appraisal Time. In Appraisal Time, players will compare the quality of their completed blueprints to the other players, one category at a time, starting with horseshoes. For every horseshoe players complete, they get to roll one of their standard dice, which are now considered appraisal dice. Each player also gets to roll one additional appraisal dice for each prestige card attached to that category. So in this example, the teal player completed 3 horseshoes and got 2 prestige cards. The green player just completed 2 horseshoes. The teal player will get to roll 4 appraisal dice, and the green player will get to roll 2 appraisal dice. Each player lines up their appraisal dice from left to right in their own rows from highest value die to lowest value die. The green player wins both columns since their 6 is higher than teal's 4 and their 4 is higher than teal's 3. For every column, or comparison, you win, you get 1 ember. So green would get 2 embers for the horseshoe category. Green would get nothing. Next up would be arrowheads. The green player completed 1 arrowhead. The teal player completed 0. So green would automatically win 1 ember for the arrowheads category, unless teal had the Resolve reward card. Resolve, in Appraisal Time, lets you add 1 appraisal die to any 1 blueprint category, even if you completed 0 items of that category. Teal had 2 Resolve reward cards, so they decide to use one of them to at least try to compete with green in the arrowheads category. Teal discards their Resolve card, and each player rolls their appraisal dice. Teal gets to roll 1 from the Resolve card, and green gets to roll 2, one from completing an arrowheads and another from the prestige card attached to it. Teal rolled a 5, and green rolled 2 2s. Right now, teal is winning the arrowheads category, but green also collected reward cards in Forge Time that they can now use in Appraisal Time. They decide to discard their reward card expertise so they can re-roll up to 3 of their appraisal dice. They only have 2, so they can only re-roll what they have. They roll and get 2 5s. They are now tied with teal. If players tie in a comparison, all tying players get 1 ember. But both players still have reward cards they can spend if they want to. Teal spends his clout. In Appraisal Time, clout makes you the only one to receive an ember when you tie another player for the win during a comparison. Green says, "Not so fast, though," and they play their own clout. Green is now winning the arrowheads category again. But green spends their reward card Intrigue. Intrigue in Appraisal Time eliminates one of your opponent's appraisal die after it is rolled. Goodbye 5. Teal finally relents and lets green take the arrowheads category, even though they still have another Resolve card they could play if they wanted to. Green takes an ember for winning the category, and you move on to bucklers. After you get through all the blueprint categories, the player with the most embers wins. And that's how you play Rebels in the Forge. If you enjoyed this game and think it should be pushed to the finals of the contest, if it's still going, please vote for it at thegamecrafter.com. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them in the comments below. Also, if you'd like to play a free version of this game, check out my Tabletop Simulator workshop page for the game on Steam. Link in the description below. Thanks again, and hey, keep on gaming!